welcome back to Consider This. Melisa and Sharaad here with you. Now we're talking about the effects of the movement control order on businesses during this period. The Malaysian Employers Federation has hit out at the government's directive that requires employers to pay their workers in full during the MCO. Now, how will this newly announced 2-week extension impact businesses? We have joining us on the line Datuk Shamsuddin Bardan, Executive Director of the Malaysian Employers Federation, or better known as MEF. Good evening, Shamsuddin. Thank you for joining us today. Now, MEF has argued against the directive for full wage payment during this time. In your estimation, how many businesses will be able to comply with this order, and what kinds of businesses will that be?
Yep. I would say only a few of the businesses would be able to do that. And those kind of businesses surely will be the bigger businesses, the international businesses, and also the local conglomerate. But the majority of the employers that are what we consider as the small and medium industry will be facing very, very difficult period, especially when you're talking about 98% of the companies in Malaysia are SMEs. And out of the 98%, 650,000 are very, very small employers with 5 and less employees. Those are the kind of companies that we have. And of course, these kind of companies actually do their business on day-to-day basis. And they don't have reserve, they don't have stock kind of thing. So if there is no revenue, but the government expects the employers, this kind of employees, to pay full wages during the MCO period, which is now 28 days, going to be 28 days, then of course many of them would not be able to survive.
Shamsuddin, there are some expert opinion out there that this requirement is without legal basis. I mean, the MEF, in sort of putting out its statement saying it is unfair to expect this of employers, are you looking at the legal aspect of it, or are you just talking about the ethics of it, the practicalities of things?
No, when I say unfair, it is more like trying to get a win-win situation rather than looking at it from the legal angle. Legally, I would agree with the opinion to say that wages is for work done. And if there is no work done, that there should not be any wages. But of course, we as MEF don't want to take that very strict legal interpretation. But what we sought to do is trying to get every party, the employers, the employees, and also the government to co-share the burden, rather than loading all the burden to the employers. So we all have to actually, in a spirit of tripartism, try to maintain employment as far as possible. So what we are seeking to do is trying to say that, okay, employees should bear part of the cost, employees should also bear part of the cost, and also the government needs to chip in.
Well, okay, on that note then, Shamsuddin, in the co-sharing note, I mean, Bank Negara has already announced that there's going to be an automatic deferment on loan repayments. That is clearly a way the government, well, not Bank Negara, it's not the government, but a way in which to help lift the burden of employers in this difficult period. Do you think that this will help with the cash flow of businesses?
That will, of course, to a certain extent help the businesses. But, when we're talking about smaller employers, the one that I mentioned, about 650,000 of them, most of them would not be taking any loan anyway, because they use their own capital to do the business. Yeah? Because being small, they don't need big capital in that sense. But, of course, their revenue will be very small in that sense. Yeah?
So on that note then, shouldn't they then pass on whatever help that they're getting with this co-sharing theme that you mentioned about, passing that on, businesses passing that on to support workers?
Yep. So this is where we say that, yes, I mean, if we are talking about formulation of how much the employees can bear, MEF can suggest or had suggested to the members that as employers, we shouldn't be taking a policy of no pay at all. Yeah? So we suggest that employees take 50% of the cost of wages during that period, and the rest will be borne by the employees themselves through annual leave or even unpaid leave, and the government has to chip in to make sure that there is enough money for the employees. Yeah? And of course, in that sense, it's important for us to say that, yeah, there are some policies which are being drawn up currently. We are talking about ERP, for example, but then the ERP condition is very, very, I would say, stringent.
The ERP being the Employment Retention Program that you're referring to? Okay.
Yes. So that the requirement is to say that you must be on unpaid leave for 30 days. Of course, employers will not want to do that. I say that we seek to pay a certain amount, but this is where MEF had proposed to the authorities to say that requirement of 30 days unpaid leave need to be reviewed quickly, so that even if the employee is on unpaid leave for a certain period less than 30 days, then they should be paid pro rata.
Shamsuddin, under the current situation, how likely is it that businesses will start to fail? As much as they want to pay workers, as much as they want to continue, what are the prospects of large-scale failure of business in the next couple of weeks?
That's why I say, if you look at MEA's report, the latest report, they say that possibly if this kind of thing continue, there will be about 2.4 million people losing their jobs. This is what MEF is trying to actually avoid. We want the company to actually be assisted to retain employment as long as possible, so that at the end of the day, when COVID-19 is over, then the employees still have a job to look for. And of course, on the employer part, we are expecting that when there are upturn in business, then they are ready to grab the opportunities rather than trying to let go the employees now, and when the opportunity comes later on, they need to re-employ, retrain, which is very, very time-consuming and very costly. Yeah.
Can we, coming back to what you said about the co-sharing between employers, employees and the government in every aspect, what are you hoping the government do in trying to help ease the burdens during this time?
Yeah, so one of the proposals that MEF had submitted to the government is trying to encourage employers to retain their employees. So we suggested that let us look at EPF, reduce the employer's contribution to about 5%, and on condition that the employers don't retrench the employees during certain period. And if they do retrench, then the rest of the statutory contribution needs to be made up by the employer's consent. So this is to say that in the event, if the employer actually didn't do any retrenchment at all, then the contribution remains at 5%. And of course, it's up to the government whether they want to actually now, after that, to actually credit some money to the employee's account so that the reduced amount can be made up by the government's chipping into the contribution.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us this evening and sharing those insights. Now we're going to take a quick break, but after this, we're going to get the perspective of the trade union. So stay tuned to consider this.